Heading into this year of Formula Racing sports, everyone was of course focused on F1 and all of its goodness that it brings to us. However, a series that has gone under the radar this year is Formula 2. Since about 2018, with the exception of 2024 and maybe 2021, F2 has been kind of forgotten about since the talent pool in the series dramatically decreased after 2018. I mean, you had drivers like Latifi, Sargent, and Zhou enter in the sport, and even the quote-unquote better names like De Vries, Schumacher, and Tsunoda were unable to do little in the sport, and all the drivers just mentioned have of course left now. It seemed F2 would just be this little series we'll watch from time to time to see ridiculous crashes and not take it seriously. However, 2026 enters the fray. The 2026 F2 grid is stacked, and I mean mighty stacked, and of course a name that many have taken notice to is the one and only Nikola Tsolov. At the start of the year, he was like mid in the rankings, but now he is absolutely at the top of everyone's rankings, and I have to say I was one of these people. I paid little to no attention to Nikola as I thought other names would simply be more impressive, and I did this with good reasoning too. Nikola Tsolov was a driver entering his first full year of F2 after having spent 3 years in F3. That's like if a 16-year-old was just entering high school. It's pretty crazy for a driver to spend that long in F3. So I naturally assume he has some talent, but nowhere near enough for F1 standards, and he would just be some other Alpine and Red Bull Jr. who never makes it past F2. However, several wins and a top 2 placement in the standings later, and here comes a story saying that he is basically guaranteed to be an F1 for next year. It seems people like me were wrong to doubt him, and hey, I'm not complaining. I love seeing junior talent flourish at any point of their careers. So I thought, surely I'm not the only guy here who doubted him or still doubts Tsolov. So let's look at his career thus far and see, is he actually ready for F1, and what does the future have in store for him? Subscribe if you love Bulgaria, and let's get to quacking now.
A good weather for a race, but especially for a talk.
As with any driver, they do not come out the womb and get thrown into an F1 car. They gotta go through the support series first, and in the case of Tsolov, it's kind of his career only so far, so let's just get into it. Now, I wasn't totally lying when I said drivers out the womb aren't just thrown in F1 cars. They actually get thrown in karts, since a lot of these drivers start karting from the ages of like 5 and such. However, Nikola Tsolov is a little bit different. At the age of 10 in 2016, he started racing in karts, which is a pretty late age to start. It's right at the limit essentially. So with him being a late bloomer and all, surely he starts bad and has to get some sum of money to continue and influence teams, right? Nah, he won his first 2 competitions he competed in, albeit they were based in Bulgaria, which, no offense to my 3,288 Bulgarian fans, but Bulgaria isn't exactly known for racing talent. So Tsolov could just be a fluke, since he's not racing actual notable talents in notable countries such as British or Spanish drivers. So for the next year, he would attempt to race them, and let's just say the definition for attempt is the act to accomplish something difficult. He failed pretty bad, which is what I'm trying to say. However, didn't fail to the point where he should be given up. He is the definition of mid right now, which some may see as, oh, why am I saying he failed? That's the thing. In karts, it is kind of failing, since there are many scouts and recruiters and such, and they are keeping their eyes on the top 10 maximum. Tsolov is barely finishing outside the top 10, and this is hurting his chances, of course. Then 2020 happened, so let's just skim past that, and entering 2021 with things back to normal somewhat, he starts to achieve results. He gets several top 5 finishes in series and wins a couple, and the ones he isn't top 5 in still seem very, very close. So in other words, he is now one of the brightest karting talents the world has to offer, and someone that notices him is the one and only Fernando Alonso, driving for Alpine and F1 at the time. Tsolov was winning titles driving for a team Alonso was sponsoring, so after Fernando views some more Tsolov masterclasses, Fernando decides to take a gamble and calls up Nikola to drive alongside him and other notable names in a 24-hour endurance race in karts. And I would say the gamble paid off, since they finished in 3rd place and left Fernando thoroughly impressed, so much so they became one of the first drivers to be managed under Fernando's new driver management company, and even got an Alpine Junior Academy drive in March of 2022. So of course, for the year of 2022, he is done with karts and is fully racing now in cars in the Spanish F4 series. Expectations are still relatively low, since drivers do need a lot of time getting used to cars, since from karts, it is a big jump. So where does little old Nikola finish? first place by not a country mile, but a fucking continent mile. It's crazy. He finishes with a flat 400 points with 10 plus wins, poles, podiums, everything, bro. Now, I will say there could be a heavy asterisk here since the talent pool in Spanish F4 that year wasn't exactly good. The only other name of note in it was Tsolov and Trpuvasak, so it's not exactly the best grid on the planet now, is it? However, that shouldn't discredit Nikola's driving since it was still so clinical, so much so that I would bet that if Spanish F4 featured a more stacked grid, Tsolov would still stand out even if he wouldn't have been champion. Other teams knew this too, so for 2023, ART would hit up Nikola's line and say, "You want to drive? A drive in where exactly? F3 for 2023. Of course, Nikola says yes straight away, so for 2023, he would be on the F3 grid and perform terrible. Like, really terrible, since he only scored a whopping total of 6 points and did not stand out at all. What the hell, was ART dog shit or what? No way he just falls off like that, right? Well, on one hand, yes, ART were dog shit, but so was Nikola since he got into incidents and was just super slow. Well, is that just it? Fate doesn't want him to succeed? No, the reason why he struggled in F3 that year was primarily because, hello, are you paying attention? In 2021, he was racing at karts. In 2022, he was racing in Spanish F4, his only car series that year, by the way. In 2023, he is now in F3. Dude, take it slow. Normally, in between F4 and F3, drivers would do more F4 series or drive in regional series to build further pace and talent before making the big jump to F3. Nikola completely skipped that part and perhaps got deceived by his results in Spanish F4 since, again, the talent level was low. So F3 in 2023 would be a failure for Nikola. However, he was not let go. The potential was there, but if 2024 did not feature better results, then he would be let go. So it's all or nothing for Nikola. After making a TikTok that sure does exist, Nikola stops his internet presence outside of reposting a few Sigma and Sad Bar Simpson edits, not lying by the way, and starts to lock in. At the sprint race of Monaco, Nikola will win his first F3 race, and couple that in with some more podiums and wins that season, 2024 was a far better year. It still wasn't enough since he was only 10th, but he was finding his groove and making up for the lost time he missed by skipping regional series. 2025 has to be another leap forward since even if he stagnates at this good-ish level, teams will start to lose confidence seeing the amount of time he has been in the series. And unfortunately, it's already happened too. Tsolov was let go the Alpine Racing Academy and now needs to find another soon since Alonso could only do so much. Despite improving, his career can get ruined yet still, but he could breathe easy now. Helmut Marko is here. Oh god, Nikola Tsolov gets picked up by the Red Bull Junior Academy for 2025, and the goal is simple. Finish in the top 3 and go to F2, or go back to Bulgaria, kid. No pressure, and no pressure indeed, since not only does Nikola finish in second in the standings, but also finishes the highest out of all of the Red Bull juniors and seriously impresses the Red Bull guys. He did lose out on the title to Ferrari's Rafael Camara, but still proved enough to move to F2 for 2026. Hell, he did a few races towards the end of this 2025 season where he impressed mightily by getting a podium in that time. It seemed now that Tsolov had made up for the loss time he missed by going to F3 in 2023, so would 2026 continue this upward trend of his talent? Oh, you know it. Tsolov so far has taken 4 wins in F2 and sits 2 points behind Mini. However, is only behind because of a Canada weekend where everything that could have gone wrong went worse. So in other words, Tsolov, in my eyes, has absolutely been the best F2 driver this year and in no time will close the gap to Mini and likely win the title. He has simply driven the best with daring moves and pace that makes you question if he is hacking. And what else can I say other than he deserves it? His career could have very well been ruined after 2023, but instead understood his mistakes and tried his best to make up for, which I would say he has accomplished and more. So what actually defines Nikola Tsolov as a driver? What makes this guy so good compared to another driver in F2? I would say the best thing that defines Tsolov is his determination. He will find pace out of every crevice of his body and car just to make up a position. He will use every centimeter of the track to drive well and overtake on. He will do everything possible to make sure he comes out on top, and if he is severely compromised, will do everything possible to make sure that the loss is mitigated. And after the career he has had, yeah, I could see why. After such a dominant Spanish F4 2024 season, I too would sniff my own farts and think I'm the best in the world and totally able to skip crucial processes of the junior ladder. It was a terrible mistake that happened, but that mistake has basically been undone now and is now driving at the level he likely would have had he actually done the regional series. However, he is not this perfect generational driver. He is good, but he has big flaws in his game, and the biggest one is definitely his awareness. I will say he has gotten so much better in this aspect, but does still enjoy a little incident here and there. And before 2025, Tsolov was basically seen as this dirty driver who can't race all too well, and I mean, there is that infamous clip from Australia 2024 where he fully takes out Alex Dunn on purpose. Now, in his defense, Dunn was being kind of an asshole, so I'm not saying I agree with Nikola's actions, I just understand them. But that's really about it for his weaknesses though. Tsolov is just this super well-rounded driver who, while not generational, doesn't have to be to still be good. The best way I could describe Nikola Tsolov is he is like Alex Dunn if Alex Dunn was actually good. I guess in other words, Tsolov is who the British media think Dunn is. Alex Dunn is hyped up to be this big talent that's Formula 1 bound any minute now. Everyone cites his amazing pace and his amazing racecraft that makes his transition to F1 seamless. However, Dunn is not that good of a driver. He does have great pace, but also has a great ability to drive with his eyes closed despite them being open. Dunn gets into so many incidents and crashes that it will probably take ages for him to remove that horrible weakness. Tsolov is exactly like that, but without the constant crashes. He will crash here and there, but it's clear he knows what he has to do to fix that problem, while Alex seemingly doesn't. So it's no wonder why Red Bull want him in F1 ASAP. However, there is a little bit of a problem. Max Verstappen is Max, so he's never getting fired. Plus, barring anything goes wrong quickly, Isaac Hadjar is doing a fine enough job in the second Red Bull car and clearly has room to improve, which he is doing. And then at Racing Bulls, Liam Lawson is doing wonderful things in the midfield by scoring most of their points so far, while Lindblad is a rookie and is not doing anything to warrant his sacking, nowhere near to it. So with 4 seats all confidently being driven by Red Bull drivers, where does Tsolov go? Because Nikola is doing so good right now that another year in F2 does seem unreasonable for the ability he has already shown. Sure, maybe keep him in F2 in 2027 to see if his performances this year are a fluke, but all that does is halt his development. And sure, maybe he could also go to Super Formula, which is faster, but F1 can be done now for him, and it should be done so in my opinion. So here is what I think will happen. Despite Liam Lawson carrying Racing Bulls, he will be fired by Red Bull and eventually picked up by Aston once Alonso retires this year. With that seat at RB now open, Tsolov will take that seat and breathe a sigh of relief. Another way I see this happening, by the way, is if Max retires at the end of the year because he hates everything about 2026, which will then prompt Red Bull in re-signing Liam again and praying he can actually be good this time, in which a seat at RB still opens up for Tsolov. There are, of course, plenty of other realities which could see Tsolov cockblocked for 2027, but let's just say that somehow, some way, Tsolov gets into F1 in 2027 with one of the realities I listed. How do I think Tsolov will then perform in F1? I actually think his career can be a lot like Pierre Gasly's. Start out very impressive and every year just get better and better until you reach your peak of being a very fast driver. Obviously there are differences, like I don't think Tsolov will get called to Red Bull in his second year and then do shit and have to claw his way back up like Pierre did. I think Nikola avoids all of that and is able to just have a good trajectory upwards even if he ends up at Red Bull at some point later in his career. Do I think he could win a title though is the real question. To that I say duh, but only because any driver can win a title. Okay, maybe not any driver, but most drivers, since they are obviously good enough to make it to F1. All the drivers on the grid have the motivation to win it, and pair that with a championship winning car and talent, and anyone can win the title. I don't know what you want me to say. Do I think Nikola can do it with Red Bull? Given the trajectory, I don't know, but should Red Bull ever deliver championship winning cars again, and should they be piloted by Tsolov? Hey, I don't see why he couldn't win it, just as someone like Hadjar or Lindblad could. But anyways, those are my thoughts on Nikola Tsolov. At first, I doubted him, but after researching his career and rewatching some races by him from various years, I don't doubt him any longer. I admire his resilience, and I think he would make a fine addition to the Formula 1 grid. Anyways, I want to give a quick shout out to Amar Zoflak for the continued support. Make sure to join if you want cool benefits, as well as just helping me out. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe since it really helps me out. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you think of this. And as always, have an amazing day.
Good weather for track.